Okay, this is interesting. I grew up with a dark skinned mother, I always say. My mother is dark skinned. This is my mother here. This is her in her natural skin tone, basically. This is pretty normal of her skin tone. This is her when she's more tan. But let's continue. I want to compare this to Chrissy's video here.
Celebrities or biracial female celebrity examples. And this is not necessarily about race, it's about skin tone. So keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that the undertone can be different on the same kind of skin complexion. So I'll be explaining that as well as I go. And like I said before, where I'm from, these definitions are nothing new. This is how I remember skin tones being classified growing up. Some of you will not agree again because, like I said, and like almost everything, skin color is relative. So here we go. I'm going to start with dark skin because, you know, that's what we do here. So Lupita is.
It's interesting. We're from the same area, so she says, but I wonder if we're gonna have the same ideas of skin tone. Let's see.
Obviously dark skinned. That's really not debatable. Viola Davis is dark skinned. These are members of the dark chocolate club. Okay, dark skin is obviously a very deep dark brown with a blue or very cool undertone. That's what I classify as dark skin. Now we will move to the category I fall in, which I also classify as dark skin, but it is the milk chocolate category. And I'm only separating them to highlight the difference, okay? This is the Tika Sumters, Kelly Rowlands, and Jennifer Hudsons of the world, okay? And I've actually heard people say that these women are not dark skinned, but where I'm from, this is dark, okay? This is still dark skin, but what makes it different is the warmer undertones. And another thing I think is important to note is that people look different in different lighting. Okay, you get Kelly Rowland on a close-up or in a space with a lot of lighting, professional photo shoot or something. She may look lighter. She's gonna look a little lighter in that picture as opposed to a far away picture or a picture taken in a dimly lit space. And we also know that some of these publications, they will purposely lighten the pictures when the woman is dark skinned. We've seen that happen over and over again. So it's also important to keep that in mind. So now we'll move on to what we like to call dark brown skin, or the chestnut and almond category. And no, we're not food, we're not candy, but it makes it easier to describe. So please do not get all sensitive on me about that. So I consider people like Gabrielle Union and Kenya Moore to be dark brown skinned. I think most people would just call them dark skinned, and that's fine too in my book, but obviously there's a difference between them and someone like Lupita. So if you were to make
She's
the
a tad
distinction, that's
lighter
how you would
still.
make it. Dark brown skin to me is dark with a subtle but visible red or yellow undertone. Next is the brown skin category. Some people like to call these people caramel complected or caramel complected, and I think that's pretty accurate.
There's the thing, my mother does, well, the only time she ever wore foundation, it was called caramel. I always found this odd though, because I always wear caramel foundation and I'm not the same color as my mother, I'm a lot lighter. It is just the weird thing, because when I stand next to my mother, I always look light skinned basically next to her. So that's why I find it weird. But then when I look at her next to dark people like the ones she's showing, she doesn't look their color. Like someone like the very dark people, the people that were darker than Lupita, those people make her kind of look faded, in my opinion. Um, so to me, it's kind of interesting to see that. I always wonder if that's how she does. How do I look next to them? I don't know. I never really pay attention. I guess I look a lot lighter than. But yeah, that's just interesting. About the whole thing where they're saying that they use caramel, that they're considered caramel. Because I'm like, my mother wears caramel foundation. Well, she will she was given caramel foundation way back when I was a little one. And then she never wore foundation again. Like, she's not wearing foundation here. She never wears foundation. But yeah.
This brown color to me usually has a distinct golden or orange undertone. And I've said this before on my channel, but I call women in this category safe brown as far as mainstream media is concerned, because they're not quote unquote too dark for TV, which is why we
They're
see
kind of
countless
comparable.
black female representation with this complexion. Angela Bassett, Nia Long, Taraji P. Henson, Queen Latifah,
Definitely
Sanaa
comparable
Lathan,
here.
Kerry Washington, Megan Good. The list goes on. Just Google black actresses and you'll see a lot of this complexion in the search results.
Okay, so I think out of this, there's a problem with the brown and light brown categories. Everything is just thrown into different spaces, it seems like. For one, we got people who are being compared to their tan complexions and other people compared to their natural complexions. And then they're put in the same category, which is a weird situation. Sana Lathan, one, is my color. So that's why I'm like, it's weird. Why'd you put her in the same category as Angela Bassett? To me, Angela Bassett is dark skin. I was raised to see that as dark skin. She doesn't look any different than my mother, in my opinion, in skin tone. Um, and to me, Sana Lathan, she has a skin tone that when you look at her in certain lighting, the brown fades and goes away. That's how you know someone is not dark skinned and that they're not, you know, these colors basically, because you can see her in bright lighting how it makes her look so pale and gaunt almost. It gives her a yellow skin tone, basically a very bright yellow. um that's how caramels do it. People darker don't. Like my mother, if you put light on her, she'll lighten up much more than this. I've seen her on FaceTime and stuff. Her skin gets like bright, but it still has a gray hue to it. You still see that grayness. Someone like Zana won't have any grayness unless she's tanned. I know this personally for me. I don't have any grayness if I'm not tan. It's completely paled out. It's like you would think sometimes under certain lighting that I might not even have brown skin, that it might be more yellow skin. Because the thing is with light browns is we are a combination of yellow and brown, and almost evenly we are brown and yellow, basically. But I always think if you have a little brown in you, you're still brown because the brown is there. To be true light skin, you have to have no brown in your skin whatsoever. You know, and people like Angela Bassett, they might have some yellow she's talking about, but they don't have an even amount of brown and yellow. They have mostly brown. My mother is mostly a brown. You can see yellow in her skin, obviously, but you still see a lot of brown. You see gray. You know what I mean? You see all those colors there. So to me, I just thought that was interesting. You know, I always thought those were dark skinned people. You know, and it's weird that they'll put them in the same category even though they're not the same color. Taraji P. Henson is not Angela Bassett's color at all. Um, Neither is Sana Lathan. I would say Queen Latifah is a very confusing individual because I remember long ago she kind of looked caramel, and then in current day she looks to me like the same thing as Angela Bassett's color. So I don't know what she is. Um, Maybe she just tans all the time. I don't know, but yeah, that's what I was taught. I've taught brown skin is dark skin. If that is brown skin, if Angela Bassett is brown skin, I was definitely taught that. And I think this is interesting because my mother always taught me colorism didn't exist. And I always took her for her word because I always considered her dark skinned. I was always like, oh, makes sense. If she says it doesn't exist, I'm not going to say it exists because she said it doesn't exist. So I just thought that was interesting. Third thing out of this, I kind of feel like I'm wondering for the people who say that colorism doesn't exist, what color are you? Tell me, because I want to know. Are you more of the browner hue, the dark brown hue? Are you a very dark skin uh, version of dark skin? Where do you fall on this? And also, I noticed, like, with my mother, she has a similar view to me in colorism, in a sense. And we have different experiences on some things, but then sometimes it seems like there's a similar aspect to some experiences. This is why, to me, I was always like, oh, you guys experience the same thing as me. But I'm wondering, is that why? Or is it because people don't recognize her skin tone as dark? Because I've seen some people who did not reference my mother as dark skinned. And usually these were different scenarios, but these people were very dark skinned in some cases. My mother had some experience. Like, the thing is, I describe my mother as dark skinned. Nobody seems to be confused as to what I'm talking about. But at the same time, there are instances where my mother would have people say she's not dark skinned. Like one time, she was saying that she was describing a pen, and she said that the pen was tall, thin, and black. She was saying that the person's race, because she doesn't say that they're African American, um, she says that they are tall, thin, and black, right? And somebody got upset thinking that she was like, she's not a dark-skinned black woman, and she is disparaging darker women by saying they're black or something like that. No, that's not what she does. She calls me black. She calls my cousin black. She calls my white passing cousin black. She calls people black. Um, but she found this shocking because, she identifies as dark skinned, while the very dark skinned people thought that they were dark skinned and she was not. It's interesting how they are separating things. And I think it's interesting also because she talks about this and says this happens to the media as if the media is separating my mother's color from someone who is like Lupita's color. I don't think anyone recognizes the difference here, you know. And many of the time, I think she specifically said here that this is the color that white people consider dark. Well, if white people consider it dark, maybe they just can't tell the difference. I personally can't tell the difference, and I'm not white. I'm not a fair skinned person, you know. Now, this is just interesting that this is the case, that there's so many different definitions to darker hues. But I get why some people say brown skin is dark skin, because if this is brown skin, then yeah, brown skin is dark skin, because I can't even tell the difference most of the time unless I line them up and see, oh, there's a difference between this shade, and this shade. I didn't even pay attention to the fact that my mother's kind of in between the brown and the dark brown hue. To me, it's all the same, And this was interesting because growing up, it was weird because my mother would always try and put some of her siblings in the brown category. But it would be really odd because they'd be literally like the same shade as her. But she would say they were brown, and then she would say she's dark. And there's a problem with this whole situation is perception. one's self-perception has to do with what they see on themselves more often. For me, I've always perceived myself as the color I am majority of my body, basically. You have to understand, people are not one color all over their body. Some people are, but I'm not. My mother isn't. Some people just aren't the same color throughout their body. My mother is very dark on her body, like her arms. I think that has to be dark skin. I remember we had like a photo, and it was just her arms. God, those arms were dark. Like, they're very dark. She has dark parts. I think she says that her inner body parts are lighter. I'm not really sure about that though. I don't know. But I just know that, like, her whole arm, it's not like one side of her arm is dark. Like, mine can kind of get like that in the summer, where one side of my arm is kind of dark, but the other side is clearly not dark. It's I don't think my arms actually get dark according to this trait. I don't even think I actually tan dark. I think I tan to a brown skin tone by this standard, actually. But either way, like, the other side of my arm is like either light brown or light skin. Um, Most of my body is light skin. My hands are light skin, like light brown skin. I'm trying to say, sorry. Um, they're not like other parts of me, like my face and my arms, my outer arms, can turn into this kind of brown category, kind of like Zana Lathan. I would say I'm not very different in color to her when I tan completely. Like, I gotta get deep into this, kind of situation. But what I mainly see on my body is not my face. I don't see my face. That's why I'm trying to say perception is important, because if you're not looking at your face and you're looking at your body mainly, then what you see is what's actually the lighter parts of you, which is actually your true complexion for me. You know, for my mother, I never really get why her body is darker than her face. But this is important because I think other people perceive her as lighter than what she is on her body. Because her face is this color, but her body is a darker color. Honestly, I would say it's probably a color comparable to either Kenya Moore or maybe Kelly Rowland. She's not, I don't think, the same color as the darker people. Unless she's tanned. Like, if she's outside in her arms, then her arms will get really dark. But I think socially, people kind of look at your face more than they're looking at your body and all, those types of different parts of you. But I'm saying, I think for my mother, I think she identifies with dark skin strongly because of her body more than her face. Because her face, this would be weird. That's why I'm saying she would put people in her skin tone on her face as brown. But then she would say she's dark because of her body. I don't know. But I think this is interesting as far as the experience with colorism. Because I'm like, my mother grew up in a black neighborhood in black areas, and she never experienced any of the things that some people talk about. She always experienced situations where people just basically considered her someone. They really didn't talk about her skin tone either way. Now, when she moved out here to the Southwest, where a lot of people are darker, that's when they started even acting odder, like, in some ways, where they would try and say, she's definitely not associated with the very dark skinned people. This is just interesting. I don't know. I'm like, I wonder. So the people who say that there is no colorism, that they've experienced as dark skinned people. What color do you fall on? I just am curious. So, I never really paid attention. I never lined these people up to see the similarities with what complexion. And now I'm kind of curious. So, was I raised by a dark skinned woman or a brown skinned mother? I don't know. Like, it's confusing now. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe and comment down below. Have a great day. Bye.